It's been
of
just
my
that long since Phil hasn't been here.
drink of my not Arnold Palmer.
Not Arnold Palmer. What is it?
It's lemonade and iced tea.
Well, that's an Arnold Palmer
I know, but they don't call it that.
because they probably can't legally.
I guess not. But I mean, you know, you go to a restaurant and order an Arnold Palmer, and they'll still make it for, like, you know, I guess,
Yeah.
and it'll even be in the menu sometimes. It says Arnold
That's true.
Palmer. So I don't know.
I wonder what the legality of that is.
Maybe you can't slap it on a can or something like that. Maybe
what about restaurants
sell it
that
at
do
retail.
this is the blank's name burger? Do they have to pay that person?
That's a good point. I wonder. I mean, maybe as long as you don't like market it and package it or something like that.
Yeah,
maybe it's not a thing.
Possible. I don't know. We ready to do this thing?
Nope. Let's do it.
Hello and welcome to episode 739 of the Player One podcast for Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. I am your host, Chris Johnston, and with me as always from Canada, Mr. Greg Seward.
Hello.
Hello. You know how you like spend the first 3 months of a year writing on checks like the previous year?
What?
As I was saying January 5th, 2021, I was so happy to be saying 2021.
Oh.
That I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm not going to accidentally say 2020.
You know what, you threw me for a loop because you were talking about writing. I don't use checks.
I don't use checks either. I don't know why I said that, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, like 20 years ago when you did used to write checks.
Yeah.
Did you used to do that for the first 3 months of the year?
I'll be honest, because of how messed up 2020 was, I had moments probably well into October last year where I was, because I mean, for my job, I'm a project manager, so I take tons of notes. Like, I'm in a lot of meetings, and you know, I take meeting minutes and everything like that. But I don't like typing them. A, because the keyboard's too loud, especially the way I type. I really slam on the keys. B, I find it much easier to remember things if I'm writing them down, like by hand. So I have just like, I'll go through like, 7 or 8 notebooks a year. And even into like October, I would put like the meeting name and then the date, and I would be putting 19 for the year.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was just because the year was so weird. And it was so easy to forget kind of what day it was most of the time. Clearly, it was easy to forget what year it was for me too. So, or maybe maybe I have bigger issues. I don't know. But yeah, no, I'll be writing 20 in the date for months. You're right.
Yeah, I always
found checks, writing. I don't use them.
Like, I haven't had to write the minutes for a meeting in a while.
Yeah,
but like, I also found that writing them out, you would remember them better if you are actually writing it rather than typing.
Yeah.
And it was the same way when I would do interviews for EGM or at presentations or press conferences, like writing that stuff down just seemed to be better.
Record it, but
writing
down notes helps you retain it. I find helps you retain it.
Exactly. I did run into, this is a while, and I won't name who. There was a journalist who visited us at Adult Swim and was doing an article. And
was it Phil?
No. Okay. They typed instead of wrote down anything, and they were not recording.
Ooh, that's weird.
Which I found weird. Yeah. Because while you were answering their question, they were furiously typing. And it was just like, this seems weird. This seems, maybe that's the whole, maybe I'm too old school in my ways. But I mean, even smartphones at that time would do voice memos and stuff. You'd think you'd want to
see. I could never use my smartphone for a voice memo because I was always so low on space that I couldn't. No, not battery. I'm not that person. Those people are terrible.
Let me ask you a question. When you see somebody post a screenshot from their phone on Twitter, do you look at the battery percentage?
No.
I do. And I always like if it's a below 20%, I'm also quietly judging them on like you should charge that up or you should put on low power mode.
The and I don't have my
how do you let it get to single digit?
I don't have I left my phone over on the counter, but I know with my brother, he gets irritated every time he happens to look at my phone because my unread email number is it's stupid.
What did I say? I saw Jake Kasdal's Twitter account. He posted a screenshot of his Gmail account, and it was like 19,999 unread.
So unread.
Like,
see, that's bad. I'm looking at mine. I'm at 1,200.
That's bad, though.
It is bad, like, but it's for the most part, it's because I'm not diligent in cleaning. So much of that is
garbage.
Mail.
Yeah. I totally understand that.
It out. Yeah.
A while ago, I got because they advertise on podcasts that I listen to. There's this service called SaneBox, and it's sort of a go-between between your email and whatever client you read the email on, and it can put things like intelligently into different folders for you. So it basically takes everything, all the like newsletters or like spam, and it'll put it in a folder. If it accidentally puts something in the wrong folder, you can just move it to the right folder, and the service will learn, okay, you put that back in there. In the future, I'll do this with those emails. So yeah, it's very nice. I like it a lot, but email is very hard to manage. I totally understand. But 19,000.
It's not
emails.
Like, yeah, and it's not. Honestly,
first of all, just turn off the little dot or the unread on the icon. Just it would stress me out too much to see.
That's what my brother.
My phone right now, I don't have any. You can look at the apps I have; they don't have any red dots anywhere, because if they do, and I can't get rid of them, it stresses me out. Really stresses me out. Is that bad? Am I wrong?
I mean, it's not bad. It's whatever. It is what it is. I find though, like to be fair, my work email account is very organized.
Yes.
And, I mean, at a job like, well, the one you had too, but job like mine, you receive a lot of emails, a lot of different clients and a lot of different reasons. So that's very organized. So kind of when I check in on my personal account at the end of the day, I just sift through what's there, and whatever's important, I'll read. Mm-hmm. And I just can't be bothered to deal with it after that. So then it snowballs to 1,200 unread emails, and I just don't want to deal with it.
I can't. Like, I would just bulk mark those messages as read at a certain point. Just like, I don't want to see the number. Just saying.
Makes you feel important.
Did you have a good New Year, sir?
Can I ask something?
What?
I did have a good New Year, actually. You know what? Let's talk about that first. So, of course, didn't go out for New Year or anything. I don't normally anyway. I've never been a big New Year's party fan, or just never done it.
Me neither.
But the kiddos, of course, we were all sort of stuck in the house this year, and so we decided we were going to watch a bunch of movies, get a bunch of food. So, did all the sort of hors d'oeuvres and the cheese plate and ate way too much. And we watched Soul, new Pixar film.
I've heard it's good. I've not watched it yet.
Loved it. I love and I mean, some of their sequels have been really good too. Like, like Toy Story 3 was amazing. And, like there's been some great sequels, but I love when Pixar does something new and experimental, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Like Coco.
And Soul definitely, like Soul reminded me a lot of the way I feel about like WALL-E, where it was just, sort of just a really different Pixar movie. And I thought it was incredibly well done. I really enjoyed it. And I was pretty emotional by the end of it. It was almost like, what was the movie that they did that was all about what if emotions had emotions? What was the
Inside Out?
Inside Out, which was good. But I feel like this was kind of like that, but kind of a little deeper,
Okay.
So anyway, Really, really good. We watched The Croods 2, which was I really enjoyed a lot. I thought it was really well done. I thought the Bettermans were really well played. And then we watched Wonder Woman 84.
Right.
And I was warned off that movie. Have you watched it?
I have not, but yeah, a couple of people that I trust with comic book movie recommendations were unhappy with it. So
it was, and I was warned off it. And I was like, you know what? I'm still going to watch it because my kids wanted to see it too. They were disinterested within an hour.
Really?
Luckily, after the first hour, the movie hadn't really started. So, I mean, there was that. It was bad. It was so bad. Like, yeah, they squandered, and I know people might still have not seen it, but the movie takes about 70 or 80 minutes to get going. It's a 2.5-hour movie, and you could cut out the first hour and a half, and honestly, outside of about 4 or 5 minutes, you're not missing anything.
Right.
And yeah, like the whole 80s thing, they didn't capitalize on it at all, and it didn't have to be like, yeah, I mean, it didn't have to be crazy, neon or it didn't have to be crazy 80s.
I was kind of hoping for that, honestly.
But they kind of led you to believe that's what it was going to be
from the marketing.
Yeah. So, and yeah, boy, they just didn't. There was a couple of winks and nods, and that was about it. And Kristen Wiig, is that her name?
Yeah.
She was good. I liked her a lot. But her character is that same old thing where I think of like Two-Face in the Batman in Dark Knight. It's like a character arc that you kind of, or like Venom in Spider-Man. It's a character arc that you wanted to see stretch over a couple of movies, as opposed to the transition being complete by the end of the first movie that she was in. But I thought she was a good character, and she played it really well. But yeah, boy, overall, that was just it was just bad. It was a bad movie. It was a really bad movie. I don't know where the decent reviews came from, because it was not there. So yeah, I don't know.
I think I mentioned this to you guys after the show last week. We had watched The Mandalorian. We'd finished up season 2 of that, and my wife said, "Hey, maybe as like a Christmas tradition, we should watch all the Star Wars movies or something like that." And it's like, yeah, that sounds like something maybe we should do, like between Christmas and New Year's, watch some Star Wars movies. So after the podcast last week, I came out of the office and they were watching episode 1.
Boy,
and
that's something.
It did not seem like either my wife nor my daughter were very happy that they were continuing to watch episode 1.
Yeah,
because it's just not a good movie. And I came in around they had been watching it the whole time we were podcasting, so it was right about the end when I joined them, right at the Darth Maul fight versus Qui-Gon.
Which is one of the good moments in that movie.
One of the good moments, yeah. But I noticed now, watching it 20 years on or whatever, like Darth Maul basically like watches Qui-Gon flip all the way up and over, just like stands there the whole time. He's been like, nail biting action.
By the way, that wasn't Qui-Gon that did that, but yes, we're having our film moment.
Right. No, wait, what?
No, it was Obi-Wan who flipped back up and killed him.
Oh, you're right.
He'd already murdered Qui-Gon by then. Spoiler alert.
Damn it. This is how much I care about episode 1.
Well,
flips over Darth Maul and sabers him in half. And Darth Maul was watching the whole thing happen, like in slow motion. There's a shot of him just even like looking as it goes up and over. It's like, that wouldn't, no, that's not.
It's kind of sad. We were talking about this. I was hanging out with your best friend Mike and our mutual friend Jim last night, and we were talking about that in general. Like, boy, 9 Star Wars movies, and there are more bad ones than good ones.
There are.
and
Yeah.
it's
Although
too
to
bad.
be fair, I haven't seen all of them now. I didn't see the last two
Yeah,
of
my daughter. Then the reason why is because my oldest has been saying same thing because she started watching The Mandalorian and she's really enjoying it, which I knew
it's
she
so
would.
good. So good.
Um, but she was saying like, I want to watch the movies again. I was like, okay, we can do that, but it's like some of those movies are hard to get through. Like
Yeah.
the first three, I find it, and that's what we were talking about last night. I find it hard to watch even the first three because of all the changes that have happened.
Yeah.
I remember really hoping when Disney bought Lucasfilm that they would do some sort of commemorative, like,
I don't think
here
so.
are the original
No.
three, the way, and I'm sure it's probably in a contract somewhere that they're not allowed to do it anyway. But
Yeah.
like, boy, I really wish they would. But yeah, like you watch those three, and then the
What is it's the
prequels. There's very
despecialized
little like,
edition that
yeah,
is
out there.
out there
Yeah.
for people to, to find. And we did end up watching the original episode 4
Oh yeah.
as that edition.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
the despecialized. So
I mean,
I
really,
also find it hard to watch the new ones because the special editions, they put some of the new effects like right in the middle of the screen, and like the dewbacks are always moving and it's distracting.
that's just it. Yeah,
So distracting.
That's really it.
And that's why Mandalorian is so good, because they don't put all that shit right in front of your face all the time. Like,
yeah.
And the creatures aren't always moving.
And the thing is too, is that because they were doing a lot of those updates, they were using CG back before CG was really up to the task.
Yeah.
It's aged so poorly. Like the movies have aged a lot anyway because they're from the 70s, so they look old. But at least it's sort of like a natural process, as opposed to now you've got this plasticky, like uncanny valley crap that just, they're just such an eyesore. Anyway, yeah. So the first three movies are still good, and then the prequels, I can watch episode 1 for the pod racing scene.
Oh, pod racing. It's an exciting bit. If I remember correctly, there's no music.
There wasn't for the first 2 laps.
There was music just like in lap. Just like in the game.
Yeah. I loved that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think music is an integral part about, making a race exciting. I don't know.
I don't, but I can't. I like Clone Wars sucked.
Yeah.
What was it? Revenge of the Sith? Was that the third? Was that episode 3?
I don't know.
Anyway, that was okay. And then like I liked The Force Awakens just because it's
Force
basically
Awakens
a retelling of the first movie.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
But the 8 and 9 were trash.
I haven't watched them yet because I heard they were trash from people that I trust.
It's a new lap record. Claire Farrell in them.
Anyway. When the first one came out, I saw it 3 or 4 times in a 24-hour period.
I remember when the first one came out.
It was such an event.
See it.
Yeah, so I saw it at midnight with friends,
right?
And then Ziff Davis took us to see it during the day, and then I saw it again with my dad and my brother.
I so remember going and seeing that with everybody at Ziff Davis, because I think it was fairly new on the EGM staff at that point, but bunch of big nerds, obviously, who were pretty invested in that movie being good.
Yes, big into Star Wars.
The reactions, I remember the conversation, like not word for word, but just sort of the atmosphere of the conversations after we came out of the theater, where it was like, I don't think anyone really wanted to accept how disappointing that movie was.
Disappointing, yeah.
Like,
I definitely didn't want to accept that at that time.
Yeah,
because we'd been waiting so long for there to be a new one.
Yeah.
I don't even remember anything about the episode 2 or 3, really. I mean, I remember like the important bits, the no scream and all that.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, we might end up watching them again sometime soon. So listen, what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Where's your wife's desk?
She She moved it. It's still in this room. It's just a little bit forward. It's not against the wall anymore.
Okay.
She does webinars and stuff, and here's
want to see your crappy desk and
the real truth. The real truth of it. She didn't want my stuff to be in the background of her videos. Which I totally understand.
And she is paying to rent office space to get you out of the room. She's moving so that it's so your desk isn't in her shots. I mean, you are a national embarrassment to this family.
I know. That's true. Well, there's like a PS5 box and an Xbox Series X box over there, and then my PC stuff sort of like is on that side of the desk where people, if she's doing a webinar,
I understand. Yeah,
people can see that. So yeah,
it's the same reason why when I have meetings for work, I tend to tidy up that table back there a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the table back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hey, you may have noticed, dear listener, Phil Theobald is not with us. That guy, Phil. He's got an ear infection of some kind, and he's letting his ear rest a little. There you go.
Yeah.
So it's just us. It's a classic P1 duo episode, just like the
OGs.
old days. Just like the old days before we realized, damn, we need a third person in
Except
here.
we're not using SOCOM headsets.
We're not using SOCOM headsets. No. Come a long way from that. So there wasn't much news to talk about in the video
I was hoping there would be, but
world since, it was the holidays and all that. But there is a rumor going around that Ubisoft stuff is going to be added to Game Pass in a very similar way to how EA Play.
Because they have their own service.
Because Ubisoft has Uplay Plus or something like that, and they even have on the Amazon Luna gaming service, they have an Ubisoft channel that you can subscribe to and then play all of Ubisoft's games on the cloud.
Okay.
So that rumor, what do you think? What do you feel about it? How do you feel about that? Ubisoft's games being added to Game Pass. Will that be the straw that gets you to play Immortals Phoenix Rising?
Maybe. Probably not.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, I might try it out.
You should. It's good. It's good. I'm telling you.
Blair Farrell in the chat saying P1 podcast using SOCOM headsets is like the start of Fast and Furious when they were stealing DVD players.
It was 14 years ago.
That does date that movie, though. That's true.
It does.
No, I'll probably get around to playing it, but I've been playing other stuff. I'm so heavily invested in online racing at this point on the PS5 that I'm not playing much else.
Oh, so here's a question we can talk about on the show. I've been listening to a couple other podcasts, their Game of the Year podcasts, and one in particular called The Back Page was a great podcast, new podcast out of the UK with some former games journalists. Talked about their favorites of the year, and they included live service games that did not actually release in 2020. So they talked about things like Apex Legends, Sea of Thieves,
Among Us,
which is where my ears perked up.
Of course.
And talking it like, should a Game of the Year podcast, if we're talking about our favorite games of the year, should it include games that are evolving games or live service games? I mean, you did have GT Sport in your surprise of the year, or you at least talked about it during that. Would you have put GT Sport in your list of 5?
I'll be honest, I didn't consider it, but I did think about that because I don't know. I mean, when you're talking about your games of the year, I think we've moved into that. That's what gaming is now, right? I mean, like it's not like it was even 20 years ago where a game came out and, that you didn't necessarily have a big community. Things like building a community around an online game weren't really that much of a thing back then.
No, even
right?
when there was Phantasy Star Online
Right.
for the Dreamcast, like there wasn't enough content being added to that as an original release where you could say, I'm still playing this year. It was like episode 2 came out, and so that
excuse me. Yeah, well, that's just it. Like you might still be playing it, but for the most part, you're playing what came out that year. Like what had come out, whatever year that game came out, you're still playing what it was when it came out. Whereas like now, like if you're playing Fortnite now, it's not the same game it was a year ago or 2 years ago.
No, it is not.
Or whatever, right? So
or even No Man's Sky,
right?
Like won the best
No Man's Sky
ongoing game thing at the Game Awards. Like that, you know, I can see how that would be a thing.
But I mean, you know, I was looking back over what I'd played through the year, and I put a ton of time into Gran Turismo Sport in 2020 because of the fact that we were all stuck at home, and I was getting back into, like, I got back into iRacing a little bit, and we have on our Discord, we have the racing channel, and a bunch of us who back on Gran Turismo 5, we'd run a couple seasons, were sort of saying like, man, I really miss doing that. I really miss racing with you guys. And just sort of, you know, then it kicked off, and it became, I mean, you know, every second Friday we were racing, and on the Wednesday before that, usually we were practicing. And so I spent a ton of time on that game this year. So if I'm being honest, and I'm not looking at, you know, just games that came out in 2020, GT Sport would definitely be on my top 5 of the year.
Yeah.
So I think it's a legit thing to do, because it's the same thing. I mean, that game has evolved a lot as well. Not as much as something like, say, a Fortnite, but you know, it's still not the same game that was released 2 or 3 years ago, however long ago that was released.
Right.
But I think it's a legit thing to do. That's the nature of gaming now.
Yeah, playing live service games, or even something like Gears 5. You know, Gears 5 didn't come out in 2020, but it had updates, and I hear that Hivebusters DLC is really good. That's like a new 3-hour or so campaign for that game. Like if this is how things are going to go moving forward, we might be talking about older games that have evolved that we're still playing in the next year, and maybe those should be on our games of the year list.
I mean, that's not that far off from, you know, we've always had, because of the fact that we moved away after the first couple of years, we moved away from trying to be what's new this week and we need to play it, right? And when we started doing our games of the year casts, we've usually had that category where it's like the game that you played for the first time this year that wasn't released this year.
Well, yeah,
no, but that has more to do with us just playing things so slowly. But
that's true.
Yeah, you know,
yeah. Game not from that year that we still played and enjoyed.
Right. But I mean, like in the chat there, Mr. Coffee is pointing out Among Us, which we mentioned before, where it's a 2-year-old game and it's still considered a game of the year for 2020.
Absolutely.
I mean, how can you not? It was so popular. You have to consider it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think moving forward, a lot of those live service games, especially if things as they get onto services like Game Pass, or if Sony has an alternative to Game Pass on the PlayStation side, and if they really focus on additional content for the games that are in those programs, we should recognize and celebrate those, right?
Yeah. If gaming has moved to the point that these companies and these developers and artists and members of the dev teams are still churning out new content years after the game initially releases, I mean, it should, if it's really well done, it should be recognized.
Absolutely. Yeah. We used to have best DLC in our game of the year. We don't do that anymore.
That's because
this DLC didn't
understand what DLC meant.
Well, then there's that too. All right. Should we get to what you've been playing?
Why not?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I played Among Us this week.
Jesus.
Speaking of Among Us, because a group on the Keelhauled podcast Discord was playing Among Us, so we had a group of 10 that included myself and my daughter. My daughter played as
Aw.
well. So she was very excited because she loves Among Us, has been watching streams of Among Us and videos all the time. She's been playing it on the Switch nonstop, but not with voice chat or anything. So she was very excited. And when she got to be the imposter, she doesn't have a poker face. So she reacted, of course, to that. And I would do the thing. We were on Discord and I was on there on my iPad so I could mute the Discord when the game is going on, because you're not supposed to talk.
Yeah. Although my kids definitely don't play that way, but yeah.
During gameplay, you're supposed to just play as yourself, not hear anybody else talking. And then when someone pushes the report button or finds a dead body, then you discuss and then you unmute and everybody talks. And my daughter, because she was so excited, just like would over the top yell, like, "This person is sus. I was here. I was in lower engine." Blah, blah. At a certain point, I had to tell her, like, calm down.
Bring it down a notch.
Down a little bit. Yeah, but it was really fun. And there was one game where I was the imposter and I killed her. An immediate like gasp from across the couch.
And she hasn't spoken to you since?
She brought it up like for a day or two after. She was like, I'm not gonna go to bed early because you killed me.
That's hilarious.
It's like, but that's the game. She killed me too when she was the imposter.
CJ, grow up.
What was I not supposed to?
I hear you. It was like you talking to your wife but she killed me too.
She killed me. That's the game, right?
My kids always end up playing it with groups, and they're always chatting as well. And it's like, I know, especially my youngest, my 8-year-old, she and her friend love that game, but they like to play together, like in the same room on 2 different devices. And they get when one of them is the imposter, they get so excited.
Yeah.
Like they're jumping up and down on the couch back there. Like they're just so excited about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cute.
And you can configure, like if you create the lobby, you can configure different things, and you can have more than one imposter, which we had 2 imposters in the game that we were playing. It's a lot of fun. I was playing on the Switch, and I think I'm actually going to switch to like the iPad or something, because a lot of the mini games that you have to do are very touchscreen centric. And on the Switch, it's just a little bit unclear what buttons you should be using for what. Okay. And while you can, of course, use the touchscreen, it's not as clear. So I might switch to the iPad. But I'm supposed to be getting like a cross family. We're supposed to be playing with relatives at some time soon, which will be fun. Get everybody playing. But aside from Among Us, I also played a whole bunch of Sea of Thieves. Course, and now since Phil isn't here, I can talk about this. I have a captive audience.
Oh my god! Hang on, I gotta go check Twitter.
Exactly. Because they had a Christmas event. They had a 12 Days of Giving event, which encouraged you to both take treasure from others and give it to crews as well. So every day during Christmas, they had this special bonus thing where if you gave treasure to another crew and they cashed it in, you got 5,000 gold for each piece, up to 5
wow
pieces.
That's a lot of gold.
So you got up to 25,000 gold. I don't think anybody else was doing this, like me and Mike, giving people gold. So a couple of times
I would just, you got your gold.
What's that?
Did you murder them after?
Did I murder them? No. Okay. So here's what I would do. A couple times I hopped on, just sailed around solo, digging up chests, and I would put them at outposts in front of the place where you're supposed to cash in. Outposts are the place where people spawn in. Then I would sail away. I'd be halfway across the map. And suddenly I would get 5,000 gold.
See, it seems more like you to turn around and then kill them once you got your 5,000 gold.
I'm not as bloodthirsty as you might think. In the holiday spirit,
I've been there. Okay.
During the holidays, I'm not that bloodthirsty.
Heart grew 2 sizes over the holidays, did it?
That's right. That's right. But they're about to introduce the concept of seasons into Sea of Thieves.
Oh no.
So they're going to have a seasonal progression, 100 levels of progression. They're going to update the game quarterly, and then you'll have rewards from renown 1 to 100 is what it is.
So we're speeding up the treadmill is what you're saying.
So it'll be a more constant treadmill than it has been previously, and they're going to have little events inside of each season. So I am very excited about this because it means there'll consistently be a new reason to hop on the seas. I'm down with that because I like the game a whole lot.
I know.
You may know.
Gathered.
If we could have put games not from 2020 in our awards, it would be very high up on my list still. Very, very
well. I mean, it's a good example of what we're talking about, right? It's a different game than
it's a completely different game
when it came out. So
well, I was talking with Mike, and when the game launched, it didn't have a lot of the things that it has now, like no rowboats, no harpoons, no explosive gunpowder barrels,
no ghost ship battles.
Those
are the best.
No megalodons, no treasure washed up on the shore. Like only the 3 trading companies. So they've added 2 more companies on top of that. It was very hard to get gold. Now the game throws gold at you. Like you
literally
you can't sneeze without getting some kind of trinket in that game. It's great. But and they just introduced, so players that have been playing from the beginning have a lot of gold now. I have like 28 million gold in that game. Jesus. And there's no after you bought all the cosmetics, which I have all the cosmetics in Sea of Thieves, save for a couple, and that you have to play arena or whatnot to get. And there's no gold sink in the game. There's no other way to like spend that money that I'm getting in the game. And Rare very recently introduced a figurehead that is based on the very first prototype of Sea of Thieves, which was in Unity, and the characters looked like beans. They looked like Fall Guys characters, basically. Like,
okay.
So the figurehead is like a 3 million gold plus figurehead, and it is both the dumbest and the best figurehead in the game because it has these Unity prototype figures with googly eyes, basically, because it's Rare, on the front of your ship, and it's the greatest thing. It's the greatest thing ever. I love it. 3 million gold. Apparently, there's more gold sinks like that coming into the game, and I'm very excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so yeah, I've continued to play Sea of Thieves and will be continuing to play Sea of Thieves for the foreseeable future, especially because they're doing seasons in 2021. So that's what I've been playing. So Greg.
So one of the games that I actually didn't put on the list, but that I had been introduced to over the holiday break and I'm enjoying is Wilmot's Warehouse. Wilmot's?
Oh, yeah. That's on Game Pass now. Right?
It is on Game Pass. That's the reason that I'm playing it. Okay. Have you tried it?
I have not, but I've heard good things about it.
It's really interesting.
But it's a game about organizing.
I was going to say it's when you describe it, it doesn't sound very good.
Right.
But the person that the people that introduced it to me, Ryan and Katie, they're very organized people. Like they're the ones that when we were all playing Animal Crossing, and my daughter still plays Animal Crossing with Katie sometimes. Like they had multiple spreadsheets going, and they had like a whole posse of Animal Crossing players that we would you'd go check how many Bell's turnips cost, and then you track the daily price, the twice daily sale prices on them, so you could figure out generally like who's going to have the best price. You could all go sell at their place, and
right,
that's the way they play their games. They're just very, very thorough. and this is like the perfect game for them. So the whole point of the game is that you run a warehouse, and it's just this big empty room when you start, and it's all 2D overhead, simple sort of iconic graphics.
Yeah.
And you'll get a shipment at the bottom, which is just a big pile of icons. And then you have like X amount of time to organize everything however you want. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And then like a window will open up at the top of the screen after a certain amount of time, and it'll be for customers that want this many of each icon, right? Like this one wants 2 bananas and 1 fish hook, and this one wants, stuff like that. And then it's up to you to get that number of those icons and walk them up to the top of the screen, and the faster you do it, you get more stars. And that means as you go through the different cycles, you can unlock things like a quick boost when you're walking. You can unlock a helper that will help organize based on what you're doing. You can knock out pillars in the warehouse so you have more room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, like that, and that's the entire play mechanic.
Huh.
And every now and then it'll stop where you don't have a limited amount of time to organize. You can just take as long as you want to organize what's there. But I mean, normally it's like 1.5 to 2 minutes, I think, to organize and then to serve the customers. And like, I think to finish the game, you have to as you go level by level, it keeps introducing more icons. So more products. You'll get to the point that you have up to 200 products in your warehouse that you have to organize. And like you
all
can
by
get
icon, all by site, right?
All
you
by
have to remember
site
where everything is.
Yeah. And like you can grab up to a certain number of icons before you start to really slow down, or you just can't carry that many, and you can push things around based on it's interesting. And watching someone who's really good at it and really has a system in place is impressive. I'm playing it now, and I'm sort of struggling to come up with a system. Like I was watching Ryan play, and it was interesting to watch him because so you get up to 200 items, but I think there's like 500 items in the game. So every time you play, it randomizes what items are going to show up in your warehouse, not between session to session, but between like actual game to game. So like watching him, and he'll like see something and he'll assign it a name, just the first name that comes to mind, and then he orders everything alphabetically based on those first names that came to mind. And like the biggest thing about it is, of course, you can't see your whole warehouse when you're running around, and it gets full.
Sure.
And you also can't see it. It uses almost like a fog of war mechanics. So like when you're walking down an aisle, if you're not close enough to these icons, you can't see what they are. You have to be sort of close to them too.
Okay.
So you can't just sort of, basically it means that you can't run onto a screen and see something down in the bottom right corner and know that's what you need. Like you need to get near it to be able to see it. Yeah, it's a really neat, weirdly relaxing game to play.
Satisfying. I think I've heard people describe it as very satisfying, especially if they're the type of person that likes to organize things, and you find like a neatly organized bookshelf satisfying.
Well, exactly.
Maybe this game is free.
I remember like I tweeted a picture of doing that earlier in the summer, where it's like, I just organized this bookshelf and I'm so happy. But it's actually
Luke Lore in the chat. This game sounds like my nightmare.
Yeah. If that's not the type of thing for you, you won't like it. But it's actually,
but it's on Game Pass, so you can try it. So,
and one of the most satisfying things about it is there's an option that you either can unlock, or you can just use it at a certain point, where it shows a time lapse of your whole warehouse. And so like you can see as like things were delivered and they were all grouped and put into different spots, and every move you've made, like it just shows a really quick time lapse of your whole gaming session. Yeah. Which like Ryan put that on, and I was just mesmerized by it. It was like so fascinating to watch how the whole thing went. Anyway, it's really neat. And yeah, it is on Game Pass. So it's, if you have Game Pass, free to check out.
Yeah.
I suggest
trying Flight Control on the
I never
iPhone?
played Flight Control.
You never played Flight Control?
No.
What? Where you basically played air traffic controller.
Yeah, I remember it, and I remember it being really popular.
It was super popular. Unfortunately, EA bought that studio and now no more
Hey, look
flight
at that.
control. Imagine how that happens. But those games were great. And I think it sort of scratched a similar itch to Wilmot's Warehouse, where
Okay, yeah.
you're organizing things. And in the case of flight control, you're sort of making sure that all of the planes land without crashing into each other and
Right.
things that sort of
The
like that
stakes are a
diner
little lower
dash.
here,
Stakes might be a little lower
but it's
in
the
that,
same
but
idea. Yeah, you're right. Like or any of those that cooking game that there's a puzzle, not a
Overcooked.
yeah, overcooked. Like the puzzle element is different here and the time pressure is not nearly as high. Like I
Sure.
was watching him
Sure.
play at a pretty advanced level and I mean, he was organized, so he knew where things were, but even then the time pressure doesn't seem like that high.
Hmm.
So, but it's the same thing. It's like I wanted I want a dish with like 2 eggs and bacon or something like that. So I have to make sure I get the right ingredients and cook it up and give it to them. Like it's the same idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really cool. So
Cool.
the other thing that I've been
Hmm.
playing this week is my Astro City Mini showed up.
Oh, ho, ho. Very nice.
I have to say that this is by far my favorite mini console. I
Really?
just
Oh,
I
okay.
just love the look of it.
The look. Okay.
Like the look of it is, I mean, and this little, it's hard to see here, but this little green bar lights up when you turn the thing on.
Ooh.
I know Phil showed this off.
Yes.
Micro switches for your controller and things like that. But I actually streamed every game on this thing, which is 37 last week on the channel. The night, I think it was December 30th actually that I did it because Ben Rivers normally streams on that night and he couldn't, so I just jumped in and did it instead. It took me over 2.5 hours to get through them all. The game selection on this thing, and Phil talked about this last week too, but now that I've had a chance to experience it, man, it's out of those 37 games, you could probably get rid of about 17 of them or 18 of them, no problem, and you'd be fine.
Yeah. Hmm.
The Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I know I've said multiple times before that I really wanted Sega to sort of jump in and really expand the kinds of games that were showing up on these compilations as they did. But some of the stuff in here is terrible.
Hmm.
It's just terrible. Like My Hero, which is like, I actually came out on Master System. There's 3 different versions of columns on this thing. Like
Unnecessary.
who
Unnecessary.
wants one of them, let alone 3 of them? 2 Puyo Puyos. I know people like Puyo Puyo more.
Yeah.
But there's some good stuff in there too. I mean, it's fun to have Shadow Dancer and E-SWAT and Golden Axe and Revenge of Death Adder and Shinobi. Having all 3 Arcade Wonder Boys in there is kind of cool, especially because they're all so different from one another. The shooters are kind of meh, Sonic Boom and Scrambled Spirits, although it is great to have Thunder Force AC in there. Radmobile is surprisingly playable with an arcade joystick, but it's kind of like the same thing. It's like Phil was saying last week. Radmobile kind of falls in here too, where that game was more interesting to look at than to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a very boring. I think I expected it to be more like Outrun because it does have like a whole Drive Across America theme to it, and it's kind of neat because like you get into areas where it's at night, so you have to turn on the headlights, and you get into areas where it's raining, so you have to turn on your windshield wipers, and like you have the whole deal with oncoming traffic, and like cars will flash their lights at you if you're going to run into them. You have like bank turns. It's really impressive to look at and realize that the whole 3D world is made up of sprites. It was like one of the last big super scalar 3D games, I think. But like playing it, I got pretty far in it, and it's like, man, this is just kind of boring. There's not really much going on. And it was kind of the same thing with that Arabian Fight game where it's like, boy, this looks incredible. Like as an attract mode game in the arcade, I'm sure it made a lot of money, but then to actually play it, I was just like, well, this is awful. So yeah, I mean, I'm lukewarm on the actual game selection. I mean, some of it's kind of cool to have in there as sort of a, history piece. And I will say too that I think more than any other virtual console, boy, do they want you to play this thing 2 players. you got to have a second controller with. So many of these
Oh,
games are
yeah.
co-op games. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, that was just arcade games in general in during
Yeah,
that time.
but they've really, like just so many. Like I've been going through and sort of because I'm gonna put together a quick video for the channel, and so many of them where it's just like, oh yeah, this is 2-player and this is 2-player, and so is this and this, and it's a lot of co-op, not a lot of I mean, there's a couple fighting games in there, but so many of these games are co-op games. Um,
Hmm.
so it's definitely worth having a second controller if you have somebody who's interested, and it's nice that you can play it on the TV. My biggest disappointment, I think, though, is that playing this on the TV, especially Virtua Fighter, which was one of the things I was very excited about, to have an arcade, more or less arcade perfect Virtua Fighter, the frame rate when you're running it through HDMI is terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it
Huh.
does not feel like Phil mentioned how it was difficult to play and everything last week. I wonder if he was playing it through HDMI because it feels mushy, and like the Virtual Fighter, one of the major points of that game was that it was very crisp, right?
Huh.
Like,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't feel that way at all.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's really pretty, and it's nice to have all those Sega arcade games on there. But I really, yeah, I'm lukewarm on a lot of the game selection, and I really wish they put in some difficulty options, because some of those games are just and I know they're arcade games and that's the point, but man, they're
Sure.
crazy difficult.
Hmm.
So,
But you
but
get
yeah,
as many credits as you want, right? You don't have to.
you do, but see, the thing is that in some of those games were mean, like like Alien Syndrome is a great example. Alien Syndrome is like a classic overhead shooter. It's a good game, but man, if you die and you continue at the beginning of the level you were in.
Oh.
And like that. So in Alien Syndrome, the whole thing is you're running around and you're shooting aliens while you're trying to save. Well, it's Alien.
Yeah.
It's the final scene in Alien. You're trying to save people who have been captured, being held hostage by the aliens, and get out before timer goes off, and then you fight a boss. And the thing is that game desperately wants to be, or should have been, a twin stick shooter, but it's not. You can only shoot in the direction you're facing, and that makes it really hard. And if you don't beat a level, which includes beating the boss, you are not.
Right.
If you continue, you're just restarting the level. So yeah.
Well, that's how they got more money out of you back in the day.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. Which is what I'm saying is like now we're past that. It's like for consistency's sake, definitely keep the arcade difficulty, but also maybe let's give people the option to maybe get through some of these games. But anyway, that's it's a nitpick. It's very nice. It's surprisingly heavy. I didn't expect it to be as heavy as it is. But it's pretty, and especially when you compare it to like the chintzy little Neo Geo arcade unit, which I happen to have right here too.
Oh, there you go.
It's like there's no comparison. So
that's good.
So much better. So yeah, that's really all I've been playing this week, other than the standard, F1 2020 and Gran Turismo Sport, and stuff like that.
All that stuff.
All that stuff.
Cool. Well, I guess that means it's time for tweets. Tweet. Now, did you actually hear that?
I did.
Okay, good.
Couldn't you see the horror pass over my face?
I did notice that. Yes. All right. Let's do this one from hacker alias Mattiful Joe, who says, Happy New Year, guys. What do you think Nintendo will do for Zelda's 35th anniversary? Anything for Metroid? Any chance Nintendo does more than the bare minimum, which is what we got for Mario? Cheers. Ouch. That is an ouch.
I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of Zelda 35 or 30 or whatever it is competition game.
That would be awesome.
I don't know what it would be, but
a dungeon, take the dungeons from Zelda 1 and make them
turn them into a race or something.
Like Mario 35 was.
Yeah.
Could be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would hope we see another re-release of Ocarina of Time, because that would be excellent. I love that game. I'll take that.
I like to
or
see
if
a
Wind
lot
Waker
of
HD wants to show up on the Switch, I'll also accept that.
I'd like to see any kind of collection or something I'd just like to see some of the old games come out. That'd be nice.
Yeah, or if they want to give the Link's Awakening treatment to
Oh,
Oracle of Ages and Seasons,
that would be
good too.
incredible.
Or just
Or
fast
any of
forward
older
into
games, really.
Minish Cap, which
I was just gonna say Minish Cap because that's not a game you see re. I don't think that's ever been well. I think it was re-released on Game Boy, on the DS as part of the
no, it was Ambassador. It was an Ambassador
Ambassador
game, I
games.
think,
Yeah,
on the
that's what I mean.
3DS, but it wasn't
That's the only
available.
time I've seen it re-released.
Yeah, and Minish Cap is actually one of the games that I've not played a whole lot of. Like I
Oh,
always hear
really?
people talk about Minish Cap and how
It's
good
really
it is,
good.
and I'll start playing it, and then something else will come out, and I'll get distracted and never go back to it. But that would be fun. Or go back to Zelda 2 and improve that game.
You don't need to improve Zelda 2.
Make
Zelda
it play,
2
make
was
it
fine
playable
the way it was.
Okay, ease the difficulty ramp.
There you go.
There you go.
There's a lot to love about Zelda 2. I think I would love to see a remastered Zelda 2. That would be incredible.
I always hit a wall in Zelda 2 and just never get past it. Just never am able to climb that.
Got to get good.
Apparently. Apparently so. Metroid. I mean, there's been the rumor that we're going to have a Metroid Prime trilogy release on the Switch for a long time. That's been rumored. That would be cool. I'd
be interested in that.
Be down with that, of course. If they want to redo any of those early Game Boy Advance games like Zero Mission and Fusion, I'd be down with that too.
I'd like to see them do something with Metroid 2. Just as Metroid 2 wasn't.
Well, they did the 3DS game, right? Metroid 2.
Is that based on Metroid 2?
Yes.
Oh,
based on Metroid 2.
Okay.
Return of Samus and Samus Returns or whatever. Yeah, okay. Based on Metroid 2, and that came out at the very, very tail end of the 3DS's life. And it'd be great to see that on the Switch. And for a while, that was rumored that was going to be brought to Switch, but wasn't. And then I guess that whatever that team is working on now, if it's Metroid related, that'd be cool. That'd be cool too.
Well, I'd just like to hear more about Metroid Prime 4. That'd be nice.
There's that.
Be pretty happy.
Yeah.
No, but I think for both of those, it would be, I'd love to see it as an opportunity to bring some of the old portable games to the Switch, just because you just don't see them very often, right? Like you said, like with Fusion and Zero Mission, things like that.
And those are really good games. Zero Mission and Fusion are awesome.
Yeah.
Of both of those.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't until, I think both of those, was it both of those that were in the Ambassador program?
I think so.
Fusion. But I played those and finished both of those like well after they actually came out.
Speaking of the Ambassador program and everything, I saw a tweet today that I guess everything or a lot of things that are older than 2011 are being delisted off of the DSiWare store at this point.
Yeah, I saw that as well. That's a shame. Yeah. All right. Let's do this one from Hacker Alias Pete Scott, who says, which games are you looking forward to most in 2021? I think we went over this a little bit last time, but we can expand it to more games.
That means I'm going to have to go look for a list of games this year. I really want to play Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah. Ratchet and Clank.
I really want Gran Turismo 7.
Halo Infinite.
Really like to. I'm not super excited about Halo Infinite, but I'll play it.
Yeah. I want to see how that game looks when it comes out. Curious to see what the reaction is going to be.
I can't wait for them to finish Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll play that.
Looking forward to Focus Home Interactive as a game called Hood that Sumo Digital is developing. And I think I've talked about it on the show before. It's like a player versus player type heist game, sort of looking like Assassin's Creed-ish in style, that I think looks awesome. That comes out in May. Hitman 3 comes out pretty soon here.
Yeah, you're a Hitman fan. forgetting about
yeah, I
that.
liked Hitman 2 quite a lot. And then we got Super Mario 3D World coming out on the Switch with Bowser's Fury, whatever the Bowser's Fury thing is. I'm very interested in finding out what that is. More 3D Super Mario stuff is always good.
Yeah, I can't get too excited about that personally, but you know,
I'm excited to hear more about Everwild from Rare. Whenever that's going to come
really,
out,
are
I'm
you
going to be
gonna
big into
you're
it.
gonna play Sea of Thieves without the boats? You're gonna do that?
Sure, I'll play
Really?
Sea of Thieves without the boats if that's what it is. Sure, I would play a space for if someone wants to make a Sea of Thieves in space, which I guess Elite Dangerous kind of is in some ways. But if they want to make that, I'll play it. Play the heck out of that.
Maybe Star Citizen will come out this year.
Star Citizen, right? I'm not interested in playing that at all.
I was once.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so much anymore. I think
Hmm.
the fact that that game has taken so long and they've taken so much money and produced almost nothing has actually retroactively made me dislike the Wing Commander games.
Oh,
And they were
really?
like some of my favorite games.
uh,
But, you know, whatever.
All right, let's do this one from Hacker Alias Decoder Otter, who says, how much are you going to, this is for Greg, how much are you going to spend on F1 Ultimate Team? Also, other than drivers, what are the cards even going to be? This, of course, sort of playing off EA buying Codemasters.
The only way that I can see it working is they introduced a my team last year in the game, but it wasn't a microtransaction fest. They introduced microtransactions as well, but not in that mode. The microtransactions are all about unlocking driving suits and liveries and things like that, different gloves, different helmet designs, and all that sort of thing. Which the game was super easy to play without ever touching. And it really didn't interfere with the game too much either, except that every time you finished a race, you get a little status bar to say, you've got this many points, and then you can move on. But I could see that being, if they decide to introduce Ultimate Team, I could see that being where it's introduced. So like in Ultimate Team, you hire a second driver. You drive one car yourself, but you hire a second driver because every team has two cars. And of course, you have to watch the driver market. They all cost different things, and you can actually hire drivers from F1 and F2, which is the feeder series in real life. They all have different stats, different prices, blah 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 blah. You have lots of money that you can spend virtually in the game to upgrade like your wind tunnel or your engine department or your fabrication department, and how fast things are, how reliable they are, what effect they'll have, how many points you can earn towards more upgrades, marketing, training for your second driver. Like that is ripe for Ultimate Team. I could see them inserting the Ultimate Team into that ecosystem and then taking the whole thing online. Unfortunately, I hope they don't. I hope they don't.
They don't,
but
they probably will.
I think they might.
They might just.
Yeah.
Do you participate in the whole Ultimate Team stuff? I mean, that's an aspect of those games that I think you can basically like ignore, right? You don't have to.
Yeah, I mean,
even though that's a big money driver for EA's games,
yeah.
like
I mean, what little I've played of, like I don't play the NHL games as much as I used to. I was really into the Madden games for a couple of years because the studios I was working at were developing either like the Wii version or working on specific parts of the mainline game. So I was playing it a lot, and you could play those games without ever touching Ultimate Team. Ultimate Team was its own sort of self-contained area. So, but yeah, big money driver. So I'm kind of hoping that if they do introduce it to F1, that it stays in its own little arena. And it's like, you know what? Have at it. If that's what's gonna drive it and make a bunch of money so that they can keep making these games better and better every year, Great. That's not the thing that worries me about EA taking over Codemasters. The thing that worries me about EA taking over Codemasters is driving to um, accelerate feature development at an unrealistic pace and leaving things to rot when they're not working right, which seems to be the problem with a lot of their yearly sports games. So that's the thing that concerns me. There's been very little of that in the, I mean, what 10 years now that Codemasters has been doing the F1 games. They've developed at a pretty good pace. At first, they weren't developing as fast as I think I would have liked to have seen, but the end result is that the game is really solid. It gets better and better every year. What features do come online are usually really good, and it does. Nothing feels rushed. The game always feels really good. It feels like a solid product that has been given the time it needs to be done well. So I'm afraid that that's going to change. That's my big concern.
Yeah. I forgot this year is going to be the year that MLB The Show comes to other platforms too. Right?
Oh,
Do you
really?
remember that announcement from
I forgot.
Last spring, where Sony's going to be developing the game for the Switch and the Xbox? That'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. All right, let's finish up with this one from Hacker Alias Evanom, who says, is there a game, is there any game you can think of that has been a disaster that keeps on going like Cyberpunk? Closest I can think of is Fallout 76. I can think of a lot. I can think of No Man's Sky. Anthem obviously is kind of still going. Sea of Thieves was certainly not critically acclaimed when it first came out. Final Fantasy 14 was apparently a complete disaster, and they completely remade that game.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. So there's a great video about that. I think it was NoClip that did it, wasn't it? Maybe I'll have to check, but we'll have to find it. But there's a great sort of documentary on that where, yeah, that game was just a complete disaster. And Square was open about the fact that it was a complete disaster.
That's right. Yeah, they were. They apologized.
Yeah,
basically made a completely different game
and made like an in-game event out of getting rid of the old game and resurrecting it as something new. Like I love that was a thing that they did. You got to give them kudos for that. You mentioned Sea of Thieves, and I think that I don't know that that's the same thing as like Cyberpunk, because Sea of Thieves. No, I mean it wasn't a critical darling when it came up, but it always felt like Rare had a plan with that game and that they were executing.
No, it didn't.
Oh, really? Oh, it felt like it did.
Well, the interesting thing about Sea of Thieves is when it came out, it was a much larger hit than either Rare or Microsoft imagined it was going to be.
Okay.
Originally, they had a plan that they talked about before the game came out, like an update that would add pets and add a couple of other things. And then the game, when it came out, blew up despite the critical reception that it got, which was mostly middling. People showed up to play it because it was on Game Pass.
But I guess what I'm saying is that
they basically they ripped up their plan after the first week and completely made a new plan that had updates at a much more brisk pace than what they were planning on doing.
I guess what I'm saying is that what they delivered to begin with is what they said they were going to deliver.
Yes,
more or less.
It
wasn't like a No Man's Sky situation.
Well, it might have been, because if you get the book that's The Art of Sea of Thieves, the character on the cover, the Gold Hoarder, which they even made a Totaku figure of, was not in the game for the first, I think he was not added into the game until like the second year or somewhere around there. Like there were a lot of things that were concepted for that game that didn't make it in.
That's a far cry from the game being fundamentally broken.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the game has a lot of bugs. I will say that even today has a ton of bugs, but no, it wasn't fundamentally broken like Cyberpunk Yes. Although, like, I mean, you see a lot of people talking about how broken Cyberpunk is, and I'm not going to excuse the fact that it is, but there are still people playing that game and enjoying that game and getting a lot
Sure,
of hours
but
of
I
entertainment out of it.
mean, it's
Not that
still
I'm
it's
excusing
still
it,
a
but
broken game.
right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't think Sea of Thieves falls into the same category as that. That was a
No.
disaster. And,
Yeah.
a No Man's Sky level of disaster. And I think the fact that you can call out No Man's Sky, I think like that is the best case scenario for
Yeah.
Cyberpunk at this point, is that they keep people hanging on long enough for them
Yeah.
to right the ship and make something
Well,
out of it.
even Fallout 76 has
Yeah.
righted the ship and has
Mhm.
put in NPCs that are not just robots into the game. Like that is finally a thing now where people are getting back into that game and saying that's actually really good.
No, that's good.
I think the only one that has not been able to right itself yet is Anthem.
I
And I
didn't even know
guess you
Anthem
could
was still
kind of
going.
put Avengers in that same sort of boat where people just don't
Oh,
talk
right,
about
Avengers.
Avengers now. It's like, did that even come out? Yes, it did in August or September,
Are they
right?
doing a next gen update to that very soon?
They're supposed to, yeah. They're supposed to. I haven't played it in months.
Mr. Coffee on the chat mentions that Witcher 3 was broken when it came out too. And yeah, that's true. And I
Yep.
don't remember that because I didn't jump into Witcher 3 when it came out. However, I think at least from a story level, it was still in a better spot than Cyberpunk is now. I think,
Right.
from a writing and sort of mission structure, but that's just my opinion.
Right.
So, I just reminded myself, I was totally hoping Phil was here. I might have to bring this up again next week. So, over the holiday break, I had a movie, one of our movie channels on just in the background while I was doing housework and stuff like that. And this old Canadian TV movie came on. I'm gonna have to go look it up. It had. Do you know who Megan Follows is? Do you know
Only
that
from Anne
actress?
of Green Gables.
Yes, that's her. So she was the main character in it, and it was a movie about a girl playing goalie on a boys hockey team, because it's a Canadian television movie, television
Okay.
movie. But anyway, so I'm watching it, and I didn't really pay attention to who else was in the movie, and the coach comes into a scene, and he's really short, and Holden, my son, happened to be in the room, and he goes, wow, that coach is really, because he's like kissing his girlfriend or something, that coach is really short. And he's like this short little really hairy guy. Anyway, he walks in and he starts talking to his players, and it's Rick Moranis in like a completely serious role, no comedy whatsoever,
Yeah.
in a completely serious role. And it was just so weird to watch him play completely straight, like this small town Ontario hockey coach who had to deal with having a girl as a goalie. It was very of its time. Anyway,
Huh.
I meant to send you guys a link to it. It was called Hockey Night, and it came out in 1984. So it was, I'm assuming that means it was right before he probably hit superstardom, right? Like,
Yeah.
because
Or right around that time.
because Ghostbusters was 84 as well.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, he'd been on SCTV and he'd done Strange Brew the year before. But yeah, it's just this completely straight-laced hockey coach. Like I said, not even like a bit of humor involved. I don't know. It was really weird to watch. I need if I can find a link and send it to you guys. I think Phil would appreciate it. Anyway,
we watched so while we were on the Star Wars binge, we also watched Spaceballs, which I think I've said on the show is my daughter's first Star Wars movie. She didn't watch Star Wars first. She watched Spaceballs first.
that's awesome.
And it's a great movie, of course. Rick Moranis is in it. And then we watched the trailer for Little Shop of Horrors, which also has Rick Moranis in it.
Mhm.
And she didn't want to watch that, but soon.
I've never
We're gonna
seen
watch
Little
that.
Shop of Horrors.
No, it's a really
No.
good movie. Really good.
Yeah, I never seen it.
Yeah. All right, I think that's a show.
I think we did okay with just two people.
I think we did fine.
Why not?
Not too much dead air, right?
Well, we're still working on it. We're not done
Still
yet.
working. No, that's true. Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a question for us or would like to comment on something you heard, you can direct that to at P1 Podcast on the Twitters, or you can go to our internet website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find our contact information. You will find blog entries on Sega CD stuff from Mr. Greg Seward.
Someday.
Some point you'll find Generation 16 episodes, a new one of which just hit the internet today as we record this.
That's right. It was one of the, what is it, 8 or 9 Phantasy Star 2 text adventures that were released as downloadable games on the Sega Game to Shokin service in Japan.
Is that the Telegenesis equivalent?
That was what was going to be the Telegenesis modem. Yes. Well, it wasn't the modem. It was a cartridge you could buy, which was called Sega Game Library. That you needed the modem for, but it would allow you to download small games. Flicky and Fatal Labyrinth were both Game to Shokin games.
Really? Okay.
Before they were put on cartridge and brought out here. And Columns ended up on there eventually, because of course it did.
Because it ended up on everything.
Freaking Columns. Anyway, yeah. So it's a pretty short episode, but yeah, dropped that today. So please go watch it.
Cool. You will also find show notes and links to all the things that we talked about during this episode, and you will find a Discord link in there where you can join our little server. You can talk about video games. You can talk about this show with us and our other listeners.
If you'd like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by going to player1podcast.com or the Apple Podcast.
We're on Stitcher. We're on
Spotify. See, you got to help me here.
Everything.
We're on everything. And of course, if you want, you can also just watch us live every Sunday night when we record on the YouTubes at youtube.com/P1 Podcast. We usually start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern or whatever weird time Phil keeps calling out.
5:30.
Notice Phil doesn't tell people the Eastern time zone.
I know.
Yeah. Bothers me a lot.
You're not even in the Eastern time zone and it bothers you.
I don't. Yeah, exactly. It does. It bothers me. Yeah. So you can check us out live each week if you so desire. And if you like what you've heard, and how could you? You could head over to patreon.com/P1 Podcast and support the show. What do we do per month or per episode, CJ? Per month?
We do per month.
Per month. However many dollars you want to throw at us per month, that would be fantastic. It helps us keep the lights on, helps us keep the servers running, helps CJ hire movers to move his wife's desk around so she can hide her shame.
No.
She
moved her own desk around.
You didn't even help?
I didn't help, no.
Wow.
I could have. She did it while I was at the office with my daughter. She moved it. So not my fault.
And if you do support the show to the tune of $5 per month, do I have that right, CJ? Cheap. Thank you.
Yeah.
You get access to our weekly after show where we usually do some sort of a trivia game. A lot of times submitted by listeners like you, Jeopardy style games. Otherwise, we have some fun with old game reviews where CJ likes to read old game reviews to Phil and I, and we have to guess what the hell those people were talking about.
That's
and depending on what magazine we're reading from, it's a challenge.
Well, now I'm into the game fans. Now
it's a challenge.
We've done a lot of EGMs.
Wow.
We've gotten to the point where I can't just blank out the name of the game in EGM. And
because in the early 2000s, EGM was so beautifully written that you still know what the person was talking about.
That's right. We got to a level of quality where you could tell what game it was, which is good, but bad for the game that we're doing. Yeah.
The Game Fan ones they're a journey.
They're a challenge for sure. Yeah.
And if you want to get a taste of that, by the way, CJ has been posting older after shows every Wednesday, I believe, right?
Thursday nights.
Every Thursday night to the feed. So you can get a taste of what those are like. But yes, we thank you for your support. I think that's it.
And if you have a few shekels left over, you can go over to generation16.com, patreon.com/generation16. Support Greg's show.
Also cheap.
And I believe you do a drive time show, the
Drive
Daily
Time.
Commute.
Look at you. Yeah, it's called the Daily Commute, weekly video logs, although I don't do it while I'm driving anymore because Papa Theobald got so angry at me every time I did it. So I just do that from my home, where yes, I talk about the creation of the show, what I'm working on, and sort of some of the how it's made, bit of the research, and also things like one of the big things I've been doing lately is talking about and doing quick reviews on some of the books that I use for research. I've got a pretty decent game research library built at this point, so sort of throwing those in there every now and then. It's fun. It's good. Cool. And of course, if you support the show, you're supporting it per episode, which, if you're supporting at the $5 level per show, I think last year you spent $15. So
there you go. All righty. I think that's it. Greg?
Yes.
Thank you for joining me and not having an ear infection like Phil did.
No problem, CJ. Even if I had an ear infection, I would join you because I like you that much.
You'd put up with the pain. You'd struggle through it.
I put up with Phil every week.
There you go.
It's like a little ear infection every Sunday night.
It's like from Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Earworms. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for listening. Stay safe out there. Still, it's still a thing.
Yes.
Wear your mask. Wash your hands. It's 20 seconds. You gotta wash those hands.
Be kind to one another.
Be kind to one another. Hug your loved ones.
And unless they're not in your household, and then just wait.
then wait. Right. If they're not in your bubble, wait.
Yeah.
All righty.